Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Rebuilding School Communities with our Back to School Resource Toolkit. Today we will be sharing our recently developed Back to School Toolkits highlighting harmony and inspire resources designed to support educators and school leaders, rebuild communities with so many impacted by the trauma and disruption as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic and social unrest nationwide. This session is being recorded, and if you are joining live, you will receive a certificate of participation and the link to the recording within the next week. If you have any questions today, please share them in the question box. You can also download a copy of the slide deck under the Handouts tab. You may have received our toolkits sent out in an email, or you can access the new toolkits on our online learning portal by logging in and accessing our recent blog post, or we'll be putting them in the chat shortly. As you will see throughout our presentation today, we have embedded QR codes for easy access to all of our resources highlighted today. You simply take a photo of the QR code, and as soon as you are logged into the Inspire or Harmony portals, you'll be taken directly to the resource. Now, I'm thrilled to support this conversation today as your host. I'm Dr. Nick Yoder, Senior Director of SEC Programs, Office of Research and Professional Learning. I have the honor and privilege of working with our incredible and passionate team to bring you resources, training, and tools to support your districts, organizations, and communities. Today, I am thrilled to share our recent released toolkits to support our districts and communities during this important time to refocus on rebuilding community. Again, welcome and thanks for joining us for this exciting opportunity to explore how Harmony and Inspire best support our education community. Let's briefly review our objectives for today's session. Today, we are here to review the research about the importance of rebuilding communities after disruption and trauma so many have experienced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and social unrest. Understand how our back to school resources, toolkits are formatted and easily accessible for all at no cost. And hear the questions that guided our resources and see examples you can use today from the toolkits to support rebuilding your community. Now it's poll time. Let's start with a way to find out more about what you are most looking forward to at the start of this new school year. Please respond on your screen, or you can share your answer in the box. We'll give you a few minutes. So our question is, what are you most excited about as you return to school? Seeing students connect with their peers, supporting students' social and emotional development, creating innovative solutions for student learning needs, reuniting and bonding with school staff, or all of the above. We'll give you about 20 more seconds. We have about 62% of you have voted. Very exciting. All right, 76%, 81%. All right, 86%, almost all of you have voted. How excited am I gonna? That's great. And 6% seeing students connect with peers, 28% supporting students' social emotional needs and development, and 67% of you all of the above. So this is really exciting that you're really excited about reconnecting with your students, seeing them reconnect and really supporting each other during this time. That's really exciting. So thank you very much for sharing. So before we get started in the toolkit, I wanted to talk a little bit about some research about the tremendous need for the toolkits. A lot of the research that I'm going to be discussing comes from CRPE, which had a coalition of researchers, experts from SEL, trauma, positive learning environments and learning, come together to really look at the projections of what we know, what we don't know, and what we see moving forward in the work ahead. So let's start about what we know. So first, we know that the loss, disruption, and challenges expressed by students, right? We all know that happened with 30 to 40% of the students having experienced negative impacts on their mental health or social and emotional health during the pandemic. What's also interesting, though, is to see the differential effects and the trajectory of how that occurred across race, gender, age, location, and length of school closures. And what they did is actually mapped out some different statistics and surveys that were conducted with students and with caregivers to see what that projection actually looked like across the time of the pandemic. So when we started off with the pandemic, we noticed in a survey of students that they were more concerned about their mental health than they have ever been before. But we also saw that they were not actually reporting increased rates of depression within 2 months. However, that began changing quickly into the summer, where we saw a survey of caregivers notice that they were now more concerned with students' behavioral and mental health during the pandemic than pre-pandemic. This was also confirmed with results from ER visits, where we saw increased students who were engaged in or had suicidal ideations and were going to the ER for suicidal ideation compared to before the pandemic. And we consistently see this increase progress the longer that students were in school or were not in school and had school building closures. And we also saw this particularly for students who have historically been marginalized. So they, and part of the reason I think we were experiencing this was this disconnect for support services. One of the really interesting things in this disconnect is we saw students in a survey of 60,000 students actually report that they had increased access to support services compared to the pandemic. So 43% felt like they had support services during the pandemic compared to 37% pre-pandemic. So we saw that increase, but we also saw that decrease in connection to the actual school and to the adults, which makes sense because of all the school building closures, where 41% of students said that they had access to an adult who cared about them compared to 46% in 2019 who said they did. So we saw a slight decrease in that during the pandemic for access to adults. We also saw an increase in teacher and caregiving stress. So in one survey, we found that 78% of teachers reported frequent job-related stress. We know that job-related stress happens a lot, but this was like frequent, so the most, compared to 40% pre-pandemic. And we also saw teachers increase from 27% saying they were depressed during the pandemic compared to 10% pre-pandemic. So we're seeing these increases in mental health needs of educators and teachers as well. So we learned a lot, but there's still a lot that we don't know and we didn't learn during the pandemic, right? So one is, which is the obvious one, is we don't know the long-term effects of the pandemic on student well-being and development. This is particularly true for young kids because a lot of the surveys that we looked at and that they analyzed really captured adolescents' perspectives and experiences because they're the ones that are able to actually analyze or complete surveys compared to young kids who might have more anecdotal notes, more qualitative data. So that's going to be a little trickier to understand the impact of the pandemic, at least in a more global sense compared to adolescents. We also don't really know the effects of the pandemic on social and emotional development. A lot of the work that was done was looking at mental health and wellness, not necessarily looking at competency development, right? So they're interrelated, mental health and social emotional learning, but they are quite distinct in nature, where one is looking at kind of like the mental health concerns like depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations, where social emotional development is really looking at those skills and assets that we are attempting to move forward. So we didn't really look at the social emotional learning pieces as well as we did the mental health pieces during the pandemic. Part of that's actually really important because we didn't analyze then what were the social emotional skills that students needed and how they interacted as they were navigating both the digital world that they've been navigating, but navigating it in slightly different. So how are they handling hate speech? How are they identifying dis and misinformation? How are they navigating relationships, social relationships, personal relationships, relationships with adults during that time? What were they using? What were the social emotional skills that they were navigating such uncertainty that was quite different than what they've experienced before? So we kind of need to continue looking and analyzing what that experience was. And then we also know we haven't quite yet understood the effects of the great innovations that you all were doing, from pods to virtual mindfulness minutes to check-ins with students, all of these really great innovations that educators were doing. We don't quite yet know what the effects of those were. But so with all this work though, there's a lot of ways that we can begin to move forward in this space. So what can we do to move forward? For one, we need to define these innovative models to support for students, right? So beginning to capture and coalesce and aggregate all the great work that you have been doing to improve on and implement these new models of collaborative supports that folks have engaged in. We also need to think about new models of measurement to understand student experiences, right? Both in terms of how are they experiencing the world around them? How are they experiencing the climate, their sense of belonging, their sense of agency, but also their social and emotional skills that they were developing, and how are those intersecting with one another to really enhance and support student growth and development for their holistic experience. And then we also need to increase the supports for adults, both their interpersonal and interpersonal competencies, ultimately creating a space to heal, build, and identify those lessons learned, not just lessons learned from these innovative models, but also the lessons learned and the assets that students captured and grew from the experiences that they had during the pandemic, because we don't want to think and re-enter schools thinking that they just lost things, but really helping them think about what did they learn and how did they grow, because from tough experiences, we also learn about things that help us navigate the future world around us while helping identify strategies and learning environments and policies to kind of help mitigate some of those concerns as well. So what did we do then to help support that healing, building community, and identifying lessons learned? We created 2 toolkits, one for educator support and one for student support. Both of them were in an attempt to identify that Inspire and Harmony both bring already a lot of really great resources to help heal, reconnect, and rebuild and identify our assets that we have. And so what we wanted to do is showcase all of the great work and learning that you are already using and how you can leverage those tools, resources, and your own learning experiences to help rebuild the school community coming back together. And to do that, we categorized our resources into 4 different key questions that we noticed from the literature to help rebuild community moving forward, right? First, we really wanted to help educators think about how can you all feel welcomed in your school? What do you need to feel that renewed sense of community and bringing each other back, right? Because as you noted in the poll, all of you are really excited to reconnect with your colleagues as well. So how can you begin to rebuild that experience? How can we continue to promote self-care for educators? As an educator myself, I recognize the importance that we always say yes all the time, and we don't necessarily always say no. And are we really engaging in that self-care experiences? So how can we continue that with you all? What resources do we have to support that? How can we think about bringing in that holistic community between educators, families, and community members together? And then how can we really think about creating those inclusive environments, right? Really thinking about diversity, inclusion, advocating for justice and equity for all, really for all communities, all students, all colleagues, and ourselves, right? How can we really just kind of really promote that inclusivity so everyone feels welcome and heard? These 4 same questions have a similar flow in the student support toolkit, right? Really, one, thinking about getting that renewed sense of community within schools and out of school times organizations. How are we building and bridging that together? 2, how are we really supporting students in that healing process and really helping kids come back to school after the COVID-19 school closures? And then 3, how can we leverage then the great skills that students have learned and the educators have learned in the past year, and what social emotional skills did they develop in their current learning environments? And then similarly, how can we foster diversity and inclusion in our communities to support students working together to really, as they experience the social unrest and inequities. So now that we've had a quick overview of why we needed these toolkits and what the toolkits are, we're going to dive into them and the resources that we have. And so I brought with me 2 of my wonderful, wonderful colleagues to really help explore what the toolkit is. So our first toolkit is Ms. Tjoutuku. Ms. Yako serves as an implementation specialist for Harmony SEL. She is based in Brooklyn, New York, and is responsible for training and implementation of the program in schools and out-of-school time organizations in the Northeast. Yako's educational experience includes being an educational consultant for various educational companies, and over 10 years of classroom teaching at the elementary level for the New York City Department of Education. Welcome, Yako.
Thank you so much, Nick. Welcome, everyone. Greetings from the People's Republic of Brooklyn. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you with us today. I hope that you will enjoy what we have prepared for you. Take it and use it, and we can't wait to hear back from you throughout the rest of
Great, thank you, Yako. And our next Toolkit expert is Ms. Veronica Calvo, who serves as a senior manager for partnerships for Inspire Teaching and Learning at National University. She is responsible for the external outreach of in-service and pre-service teacher training and development, as well as dissemination of the Inspire curriculum, resources, and best practices integrated into teacher development programs across the country. Ms. Calvo has 18 years of education experience, including 5 years as a high school Spanish teacher. Welcome, Veronica.
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here with you today and to share all of our strategies that we have in our programs.
Great. So we're going to start off with the Educator Toolkit. So thanks, Veronica and Yako, for being here. I'm going to ask some of the questions from the toolkit, and you're going to then elevate what some of those resources are about. So first, Yako, can you share how can we deepen connections among educators, families, and community members as we head back into the school year? And this is part of the Educator Toolkit. Take it away, Yako.
Right. So, Nick, all of us, those of us who have been classroom teachers and or who work directly with students know that when we first come back, even pre-pandemic, we wanted to connect. We wanted to give each other big old hugs. We might not be able to do that yet, but the primary focus is for us to connect. And if we are to use and build collaborative SEL supports like you talked about, whether you are a follower of Bloom's taxonomy or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or if you're like Yako, I don't know who those people are, the first things first, we have to connect. And so what we have put together from Harmony is an opportunity to connect using the Buddy Up everyday practice, using the quick connection cards. And we have the community builder cards, the category call out, a collaboration card that kind of identifies who I am and where I am in this newfound educational space that we're in, and this conversation card that talks about what is something that you have done that made you feel brave? And that is what the QR code connects to. If you hold your cameras over that, you will be able to connect to the Harmony online learning portal and connect to that card. So we want to try to build from a area of strength and talk about what is something that you have done that made you feel brave. Next slide, please. We also strongly suggest that parents and teachers and caregivers and all school staff really do their due diligence to make the homeschool connection strong. So we really strongly suggest that if you're implementing Harmony this year, when you're going to implement, we want to use the family letter. Let parents know where you are in this SEL journey with Harmony, and give them the letter to let them know what's going on in the journey, what the children are studying, and lessons that they're going over. That way, the homeschool connection will be strong. Everyone will be able to do their part, and we will all begin to connect again and heal together. Veronica, what say you on the Inspire angle in terms of deepening connections among educators, family, and community members?
Thank you so much, Yako. Those are great examples on how to make those connections. I'm here to tell you about the Inspire resources that we have. And you can see on this slide that we have 2 modules that we've featured here that help focus on helping educators communicate and engage with families. I'm going to focus on strategies for communicating with parents because it's a terrific module to start off the year. Many teachers experience, the uncertainty of, how to best communicate with parents, whether it's either face-to-face, on the phone, or via email. But it's important to know what to say to the parents and how to say it, but also including how the parent might interpret your message. So next slide, please. We have some strategies here that will tell you some do's and don'ts that can help educators effectively communicate with their students' family. You can find these do's and don'ts on our module resource guide, one of 5 additional resources that are included in each individual module. Operating with sensitivity, understanding that parents may have strong feelings about issues related to their child is a do to consider. So we want to understand where the parent is coming from, and as we tell them what this child is doing in the class or in their work, we want to consider the parents' feelings too. Ignoring the parents' perspective and moving forward with your own plan and agenda is a don't. You know, you definitely want your parents to be included. You want them to be heard and them understand that they are being heard and that you will work together with them to help out the child. Next slide, please. So now let's think of ways that you can connect with parents to support engagement. We've created a Jamboard where you can share your ideas with the audience and keep these strategies in your toolbox for the next school year, for this school year, I should say. Make sure you continue to jam and post your new ideas throughout the year. The link will be posted on the chat box. And so make sure you bookmark the board for easy access throughout the year. Back to you, Nick.
Thanks, Veronica and Jaco. Those are really great suggestions. So next, we're going to keep with the Educator Support Toolkit. And as you're kind of looking, and as you all are hearing what you're experiencing from the toolkits, please make sure you're using that Jamboard, or if you have questions, make sure you add those in the question section. So our next question, though, is how can educators and staff gain the competencies and perspectives to support diversity and inclusion in their classrooms and advocate for justice and equity in their communities for students, colleagues, and themselves? So Veronica, we're going to continue with you for this question.
Thank you so much, Nick. There are several Inspire modules within our library that focuses on supporting diversity and inclusion in the classroom. So we've picked 2 modules here to showcase the variety of Inspire strategies, but we're going to focus on working against racial bias. As teachers, we often reflect on our teaching practice, but also on our students. So taking that time to identify our own biases and operate with a social cultural consciousness is an important skill for all educators. Our biases often are invisible to us because they've been integrated into our own worldview and seem so natural. So as we engage with our colleagues and ourselves, we must learn about the assumptions, attitudes, and stereotypes towards different groups of people. The strategy that we will recommend is the following. Next slide, please. Okay, number 1, learn about self. So locate your beliefs about teachers, students, and schools, as well as the experiences that informed those beliefs. And then you'll identify those limitations of this perspective. Number 2, learn about school and society. Specifically, learn about the different groups and of students that have historically been marginalized in the public education. And number 3, learn from others. Develop interpersonal awareness and seek to understand perspective of others, especially during times of conflict or uncertainty. So these are great questions that I've posed to you so that you can reflect as educators. It is the beginning of the school year, so it's a perfect time to have these questions be posed to you and see what your answers are so that you can work on your own classroom environment this school year. Next slide. Our working against racial bias module is a terrific school to start the school year. This will allow us to gain the competencies and perspectives to support all students. Again, I pose these 3 questions that are very, very powerful because we are at the beginning of the new school year. You know, what is social cultural consciousness important? How can our own world views influence our actions towards students? And what are some personal actions that you can take to understand our students' worldview? So all very great questions. Back to you, Nick.
Great, thank you. So we have one more question that we're going to focus on in the Educator Support Toolkit. This one is focused on your own self-care, educator self-care. How can you help promote educator self-care to help them be at their best for themselves, their colleagues, and their students? Yako, you're up.
Okay, well, listen, self-talk really loomed large while we were sheltering in place, weren't we? And we were all stuck in the same house or the same room. And if you're in New York City, we were kind of close together, right? So going for a walk became a big thing. Listening to your favorite tunes became huge. Me time, even in your own little space, became a very large thing. And so we know that as the pandemic continues, as the racial unrest continues, we have to continue to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. We have such a big responsibility caring for our future, caring for our children. And so what we have, so self-care is a necessity. It's not a suggestion anymore. It's a necessity. And what we have wanted to let you know about is we have webinars. Harmony has a wonderful partnership with many experts in the field. And one of our experts is Dr. Chris Reyna. And he actually, the staff at Harmony has been kind enough to lend him to you too, because he actually does our staff professional development. And he did a mindfulness for educators webinar, which was so insightful and wonderful. And so we suggest that you take a look at that on-demand webinar, and the link for that is at the top and the QR code. And stay with us throughout the year to see not only the on-demand webinars, but the webinars that will come in this school year. So mindfulness for educators with Dr. Chris Reyna is something that we really suggest that you take a look at. And we want to also remind you about the Harmony Game Room app. So the Harmony Game Room app is found anywhere you find your apps, at the Mac Store or Google Play, to be used with your iPad or your phone. Take a look at the Relaxation Station. Be able to breathe in and out, being able to control our breaths, being able to focus, not only for the children, but for us as well. And so those are what we really suggest: mindfulness, taking a gander at the Relaxation Station and the Harmony Game Room app to find out our culturally responsive practices in helping you to be calm and take care of yourself. Veronica, what are we going? I'm not sure if we're going to Veronica next. Are we? Yes. Okay. Veronica, take it away.
Thanks, Jaco, for those fantastic resources that we all can use. I love the relaxation station, so I definitely recommend that you all download that Harmony app. So here we have some wonderful modules. Coping with teacher stress is one of my favorite modules that I always recommend to educators, because we all go through stress, right? Whether you're a new teacher, veteran teacher, having stress is always part of the equation, because that's just what happens, whether it's little or a lot. But how we manage that stress can make all the difference. So when you have anxiety or stress in your life, one of the ways your body responds is with muscle tension. And so progressive muscle relaxation is a method that helps relieve that tension. You can see on this slide a relaxation technique that is shared on the Coping with Teacher Stress module. Working on muscle relaxation can calm the body and mind. So let's try this technique together. I'm going to turn on my camera real quick here so that we can just kind of loosen up and relax. But here is what we're going to do. We are going to tense and release a muscle group in your body. So let's start with our hands, but before you do that, you're gonna want to sit in a comfortable position. So I'm gonna get comfortable myself here. And now let's start with our hands. So we're gonna make a tight fist and we're gonna keep it tense for 10 seconds. You're going to focus all of your attention on that one muscle, or maybe two muscles since you're using your two hands. So we're gonna hold it tight, tight, tight. And now we're gonna let it go. And we're gonna let it go for 15 seconds, but we don't only have 15 seconds right now. But we're gonna notice how we feel, how that is so different from us being tense in that grip to just being relaxed. Okay, so now let's move on to a different muscle group. And let's go with the shoulders. Sitting down, you know, these can get really tense, right? And so let's move with the shoulders by shrugging them and raising them up to the ears. And so again, you're gonna feel the tension and you're gonna hold for 10 seconds. Feel that tension, focus on that muscle. And you're going to relax. And if you need to move your neck around because it's all connected, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so now how do we feel? How do we feel? Hopefully you are more relaxed and less tense. So by practicing these type of muscle relaxations for a few weeks, it will help you get better at that skill, and you'll be able to use these methods to relieve any stress that you may have. This module also has some really great breathing strategies that you can use along with that Harmony app via the Relaxation Station. So really great app. Again, I'm gonna promote it again, download it so that you can use these breathing strategies with it. Let's see, and the last thing I wanted to say on this piece is that make sure you connect with yourself each and every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. It's so important for you as the educator to be good and calm and no stress, so that you can help your students do their very best. Back to you, Nick.
Great. Now it's time for us to ask the audience. So we want to know, what is one key takeaway from the Educator Support Toolkit that you had? We're hoping you will share your answer in the question box, and then I can go through and help read a few of those. In the meantime, while you're thinking about your takeaway from the Educator Support Toolkit and putting that in there, Joanne asked a really great question, is that she has students who both were in person and students who were virtual, and so how can we help them integrate and learn from each other? So one of the really great things about Harmony is I would use your meetup process to help kids begin to reflect on what that experiences were. Let them ask questions of each other, and ensuring that they are not actively comparing and contrasting in the sense that they're saying one was better than the other, but allow them to showcase what were some of the different things that they learned, what were some of the different feelings that they had, and let them really kind of showcase and share what that experience is. So I would definitely say that would be really one great way to help let them integrate what their experiences was in person and or virtually, and maybe even think about how they would feel in the opposite sense. So right, really helping them think through and gain that perspective taking and that empathy within there. So I'm not quite seeing any questions yet. I'm going to give about 10 more seconds to see if it takes a second to pop up at all. If not, that's all right. You can always use that Jamboard in there. All right, so we have one. Kim really liked the Educator Relaxation Station in the app. Yeah, this is really great. You can use it. both in by yourself with your kids. It's a really great app to be able to use. So thank you at all. Keep popping them in there with your feedback, and we'll hopefully be able to kind of answer some of those moving forward. So now we're going to look at the student support toolkit and some of the questions that were asked there. We're going to focus on 2 questions in the educator support toolkit. So the first one is how can we, and this really goes back to Joanne's question too, is how can we help students leverage the skills they gained in the past year and develop further social emotional skills in their current learning environments? Yako, you're up.
Thanks, Nick. So, right, eventually, we are going to have to really get down to brass tacks and, talk about skills and really, get the learning in, right? But we will have to assess, right? We'll have to do some assessment to see where we are, both emotionally and academically, right? So, in order for us to be able to co-labor, right? The teacher, the student, co-laboring in the learning that's going to take place throughout the year, we don't want to totally come at it from a loss perspective, right? Well, what did you learn? Nothing. Or how many months did you not, get? We want to approach it from a strength-based perspective. So instead of looking at it from, well, how much did you lose? We're going to use this quick connection card, this early childhood conversation card is, what is something that you learned how to do this year? Even with shelter in place, even as we were at home, there were things that you may not have even been aware of. Maybe you became an excellent cook. Maybe you learned how to be, an expert, I don't know, cleaner of your house. So when you use vinegar, that really cleans everything. You may have learned things that you're not even giving yourself credit for. So we want to make sure that you think about how you can leverage those skills, how you can talk about them, right? The other card from the upper grade set of quick connection cards is everyone has a gift for something, even if it is the gift of being a good friend by Marian Anderson. So what is a gift you could give or receive that you can't buy in the store? There is a way to keep this and keep the children and yourselves uplifted even in this process. And we choose to do that using the quick connection cards and focusing on and talking about what we've gained even in shelter in place. Next slide, please. The other thing we want to do, and what is always helpful, is to share what we've learned with others. And so one of my favorite lessons in the diversity and inclusion, I believe, is this, yes, learning from diversity. This is the learning something new activity. And with this activity, that's what the QR code is for, is the I know a lot about. So you can kind of combine what the responses from the quick connection card and then move that into an activity. Students write or draw what they know about, which can be used to encourage classroom interaction. Yes, have students respond to the prompt by writing or drawing. I could help my friends learn to ... Use this work to create a class directory to encourage peer interactions. Hold your phone up to that QR code so that you will be able to get right to that lesson if you are signed up for the Harmony online learning portal. So we're going to come from strength-based. We're going to take the skills we did learn and we're going to share and learn from diversity. Veronica, what have you got to add to this leveraging our skills?
Thank you so much for sharing, Akko. So here we have Be the Spark, Nurturing Student Inspiration. This is yet another module I'd like to share with all educators. Again, whether it's a new or an experienced teacher, because inspiration in the classroom is really important to the educational process. This module identifies research-based strategies that you can use in the classroom to create an environment that fosters and nurtures students' inspiration. So whenever a student at any level is motivated to work towards a goal or towards some type of outcome, it's usually because somewhere along the line they were inspired. And so inspiration is more likely to occur in classrooms where the teacher has built positive, respectful relationships with those students, and where students have the opportunity to do interesting works that pertain to their student interest. So the Inspire strategy that we share here today is to learn about your students' interests and connecting them to the content. Getting to know who your students are as individuals can help you provide an inclusive, respectful, and accepting classroom environment. This will not only help to keep your students highly engaged in their own learning, but it will also provide a safe space for them when navigating some tough times, and it will encourage them to open up and seek support when needed. Next slide, please. So it's time to jam again. We've created a Jamboard that will allow you to share the different ways you tap into student interest in the classroom or your school communities. Please share your ideas on the Jamboard and continue to add new strategies throughout the year. Make sure you bookmark the board for easy access. Back to you, Nick.
Thanks so much. And our final question for the day is, how can we foster diversity and inclusion in our communities and support the many students who have seen and experienced social unrest and inequities? Yako, to you.
All right. So, social justice, diversity, equity, inclusion. If that was not on your lips at some point, all during our shelter in place, as we watched the social unrest and George Floyd and all of the other circumstances and situations all across the United States and globally, there were many of our partners who asked, what do you have for that? That's what they asked us. Do you have something for that? We absolutely do. I want to introduce you to, if you haven't had a chance to look at our lessons and activities, the Pop That Stereotype lesson. Currently, I'm showing you the 2.4. This lesson I want to share with you goes across grades. So in grade 3, this is called Pop That Stereotype. But in grade 4, it's called the Stereotype Detectives. And in this lesson, the objectives are to reduce stereotyped thinking, to become aware of how thoughts influence feelings and feelings influence behavior. But we also learn, as we flesh this whole lesson out, that we can develop the tools to change one's own thoughts. I cannot think of a better time to really have an opportunity to learn the skill to change our thoughts, coupled along with what Veronica shared with us about our our internal and implicit bias. You can also learn tools for developing and changing one's.
Okay, so I am going to talk about one of the Inspire strategies here. It's the very last one, but it's a very important one because it comes to you also in a form of a webinar. So it's another valuable resource that we have within our programs. Harmony and Inspire host monthly webinars for all educators with incredible thought leaders in the education field. And this one specifically has a wonderful guest, Dr. Mary Connage. She is the Director of Special Projects at the Pinellas County School in Florida. and her webinar offers tools to facilitate authentic reflection, intentional planning, and focused action for a more equitable academic experience and achievement outcomes for diverse learners. So again, I can't say this, stress this enough. Building relationships with students is all part of this process. When educators take the time to know their students as an individual, getting to know their historical roots, their ethnic group, their home language, their religion, or maybe even their immigration story, it can provide teachers with valuable information. Getting to know those students while learning about the history and the culture of their identities sets up the foundation to establish meaningful relationships with those students. And so helping students problem solve tasks within the content, within the lesson that the educator has put for that day or for that week really gives meaning to the students' learning. And that is how we get a cultural responsive learning environment. So for example, interviewing your students to build a stronger understanding of your students' values and habits, as well as strengths and weaknesses, is a strategy that you can use and implement in the classroom. Integrating relevant word problems into your activities, such as including the students' names or referencing diverse cultures, is another strategy. I felt part of my classroom when my own teachers included parts of my culture into the lesson plan. So ask yourself if this has happened to you and how did it make you feel? Did it help you feel a sense of belonging within the classroom? Did it allow you to connect with others? And so how can you ensure that students feel respected, seen, and affirmed in your classroom? Next slide, please. So let's take some time to reflect on these questions. Really, again, powerful questions. What are some culturally responsive teaching strategies that you currently use? And then what are some new ways you can create a more culturally responsive learning environment in your class or school? Again, it's the beginning of the school year. How can you apply what you've heard here today into your classrooms? Back to you, Nick.
Thanks so much. So I know we lost Yako. So while we're waiting for you all to reflect on this one question, what is one takeaway from the student support kit? Please provide your answers in the question box. Please go ahead and do that. But Yako, while everyone is kind of writing their question or their response in the question box, did you want to be able to finish what you were going to share? Are you back? No worries if not. Some of the folks that other people appreciated learning about so far is they appreciated learning about these specific modules that they get to explore that they didn't know that maybe they didn't know we had that would help them further develop their skills and assets to support their educators. Another person mentioned, Joan, you're on fire today. Many learned how to get along, improve communication with their families. So really thinking about those communication strategies with their families as well, also a really great learning. We also, Shannon mentioned she asked her students to share their creation stories when studying Early Man. She used journals to get to know each student and provide them an opportunity to get to know each other on a deeper level. So really appreciate those responses and sharing back. If we want to go to the next slide. So I really want to thank you so much for our toolkit experts for sharing these amazing resources today and kind of helping us process how we could actually use those toolkits to really support reconnecting, rebuilding, both for educators and for students. We hope your audience has discovered some new tools and some new knowledge to support rebuilding your school communities. We look forward to hearing in our post survey how you plan to use these toolkits. We also look forward to you joining us on our special webinar on September 20th from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific or 4 to 5 Eastern, where esteemed author and researcher Dr. Doug Fisher will share additional research on how to support school communities, and our Harmony ambassadors will share how several of our partners are using these resources shared in the toolkit to help rebuild their communities. You also get a sneak peek of our Harmony 3rd edition to be released later this fall. An email with the registration link will be coming soon. So once this webinar comes to a close, the survey will launch on your screen. It is very short, and as a researcher, I always appreciate getting critical feedback, so please respond to that and get it so we can get your feedback. We do read your feedback and take your responses seriously. To this day, your responses have helped us build more successful webinars. We also encourage you to connect with us on social media. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.